Hello, welcome to another installment of my reading of Boston Accent. I'm Mattioli, and Boston Accent is available on Amazon.com. Okay, we're doing this reading on the fly here. I'm not quite set, but we got to be better than yesterday. If you caught yesterday was a little out of control. We've settled down. I didn't know what yesterday was. I thought yesterday was Saturday. Today's Saturday. So we're doing the reading today, taking tomorrow off for the Super Bowl. All right. We're going to get right into it because we did a lot of screwing around yesterday. Boston Accent. My relationship with Rachel started to go south after a year or so. I think we both discovered that outside of sex and drugs, we didn't have a whole lot in common. I began to split my weekends between her and my buddies, and if I ran into someone who was attractive, could carry an intelligent conversation, I would mess around with them. I was entering my dog phase where I felt no loyalty or commitment to any woman. One night I met a woman, Erica, at a club in Sledgework, and I invited her to spend the rest of the evening with me. She had driven to the club with her friends from East Horton, and she came across a little snotty and turned down my advances. A couple of weeks later, I was out with Rachel, and we had been arguing as soon as I picked her up. We ended up at the Ramrod Dance Hall, and as soon as we got there, we went in opposite directions with our friends. I began to drink heavy, and the beers were really going down like water. While I was standing at the bar, some guy I didn't even know handed me a vial and said, "Try this." The vial was labeled locker room, and I said, "What the fuck is this?" The guy says, "Cover one nostril and inhale the vial through the other." So I did. And while I was doing it, he stopped me and said, "Easy, that's enough." I got real dizzy and grabbed a hold of a column of support and slid right to the floor as I blacked out. I came to sitting on the floor with the guy laughing his ass off as he helped me to my feet and ran off still laughing. This was my introduction to amyl nitrate. I only used it a couple more times after that. It seemed to be very popular with the gay culture, and the individuals that were offering it to me were either suspect or blatant. I did a lot of hitchhiking in the 70s and 80s, and was propositioned by many men. I never got pissed off at them. I simply told them, I only have eyes for the ladies. If they offered me drugs or money, I would rip them off and promise to hurt them if they didn't pull over and let me out. After my head cleared from the amyl nitrate, I went back to my table. While watching the band, I saw a pretty blonde walking across the club staring at me and smiling. It was Erica from East Horton. She came over to my table, sat down across the table from me. She apologized for coming off as a snob the night we met, and said she would like to make up for it. I said, "What do you have in mind?" And she said, "How about a kiss for starters?" As she leaned across the table. I took a quick look around the club for Rachel, and then leaned into Erica, who grabbed me and kissed me hard while shoving her tongue in my mouth. Then Erica said, "Is there somewhere we can go? I'd like to spend the night with you." Right there, common sense should have told me, you can't do this tonight. You came here with someone else, so promise to get together with her another time. Erica kicked off her shoes and began to rub my crotch with her foot under the table, and all my rational thoughts went out the window. I grabbed my coat and said, "Let's go." One moment, dog. I got to get a little Joe going here. It's early. As we were headed towards the door, Rachel's best friend Valerie spotted us and filled Rachel in when she came back from the ladies' room. Meanwhile, I was making breakneck speed trying to get to my parents' house ASAP, with Erica making it very difficult to drive. Now, there was a no sex in my house rule that my mother had imposed that I had been breaking since I was 16. My mother never knocked and often entered my room at the crack of dawn to find a woman in my bed, sometimes two. She had even walked in on me during the act. She would throw them out, and a week later, someone else would be in my bed. It was very easy to get them in the house. Right through the front door, if my mother was in bed, or I would pull them in through my first floor bedroom window. Ralph didn't give a shit either way. he just wanted me out of the house and would often insult me for being 21 and still living at home. Even with all my nonsense, my mother never threatened to throw me out. She just wanted me to get my shit together. So on this night, it's late, and I walk Erica right through the front door and into my room, where once she's on the bed, she puts the brakes on. She wants me to take my time, and I'm not only ripping her clothes off, I'm already naked. Suddenly, there's a knock at the window, followed by Rachel's voice. Open the front door. I know you have someone in there. Erica is horrified, having not been briefed about Rachel, and says, "Who is that?" I tell her to put her shirt back on while I'm getting dressed, and then I head to the front door. As I get to the living room, I run into my mother, who says, "Someone is at the door," and rushes to open it. I say, "Screw this." I fly down the cellar steps and wait in the dark, listening to see what will happen. Then the cellar light comes on, and my mother calls my name. I answer her and she says, "Get them out of my house." I return to my room, and the first thing I see is Rachel holding Erica by the throat. Erica is flat up against the closet crying, and she looks terrified. Rachel is right up in her face, and she's saying, 2 years. I've been in a relationship with him, and you think you can just fuck him the first night you met him? You fucking slut. Erica is apologizing and saying, "I didn't know about you." When I speak up and say, "Let's go. My mother wants you both out of the house." Erica says, "I need a ride home." And I say, "I'm giving you one. Grab your coat." Rachel says, "You'll give me a ride home first." And out to my car we go, with Erica climbing in the back and Rachel in the front. Rachel starts in on the both of us by saying, "Isn't this cozy? Just the three of us." I ask Rachel how she knew we were here. She tells me about Valerie seeing us leaving together. She demanded that Valerie help her find us, and this was their first stop. Rachel then looked in the car and saw Erica's gloves on the dashboard. I dropped Rachel home, and she wished me and my whore a good night and slammed the car door. Erica refused to get in the front seat with me, and we rode in silence all the way to her house. This was the last time I saw her, but Rachel was back at my house the next day. Need another one? Oh yeah, that's so hot and so good. Okay. Rachel was not done giving me a piece of her mind, not that she had much to spare. And I told her I had made a huge mistake and it would never happen again. We jumped into bed just like nothing had happened, but I think Rachel and I both knew that our relationship was going to get worse before it got better. But neither one of us was ready to end it. All these years later, Rachel remains one of the toughest, sexiest women I've been with. She had a muscular body, and she carried herself like she was ready to kick someone's ass. When she spoke, she often sounded like a boxer that has had her bell rang one too many times. But in bed, she was anything but aggressive, and took the role of an almost shy submissive to my very aggressive orchestration. One evening, Rachel and I were double dating with Jake and a friend of Rachel's. It was sort of a blind date after Jake and Gretchen had broken up. After clubbing, we ended up at the sub shop. Rachel was still in the sub shop, having used the bathroom, and while the three of us waited in the car, when I heard her yell, "Fuck you!" I get out to see what's going on, and she's facing off with 3 jocks from Marlin. She has her knife out that I had given her for personal protection, and she's holding it out in front of her. I asked her what happened, and she said, "They called me a fucking whore." Now Jake jumps out of the car, and we start walking up to these guys as the cops pull up. They tell all of us to get in our cars and leave. I let the jocks pull out first, and then I follow them up to the stop sign at the edge of the plaza. Before they can pull out into the traffic, I rear-end them. The driver gets out of his car screaming and checking his car for damage while we're all laughing and flipping him in the bird. Then the cruiser pulls up behind me and puts his lights on to stop me. He walks over to my door and asks me what my problem is. I tell him that they insulted my girlfriend. He then lectures me on bad tempers doing more damage than words and tells me to go home. At the first set of lights, the jocks pull up alongside us and flip us off while waiting for the light to change. I look at my rear view, and the cops are still behind me, but when the light changes, they take a side street and disappear. When we get to our turn to take the back roads to Pineyville, the jocks follow us, and it turns into a race. It's about 3 miles on the back roads to the town line, and both vehicles were averaging 70 miles an hour on the roads with a speed limit of 30. As we get back into my neighborhood, with the jocks right on my ass, I head back out to the closest main highway. When we get to a wide stretch of road in a commercial area, the jocks with a more powerful engine decide to pass me. I yank the wheel towards them in an effort to run them into a telephone pole. What happened instead is the driver, sensing the impending disaster with the pole, steers into me with both cars sideswiping each other. I slam on my brakes, figuring they'll do the same, but instead they take off back towards Marlin. I decide it's not over, even though everyone in the car asks me to stop, and I chase after them. I spot a car making a left right over the Marlin town line, and I pull up alongside it. I smash a bottle on the side of the car, scaring the shit out of some poor woman. Okay, now I'm done, I tell my pissed off passengers as we do a U-turn and head back to Pineyville as fast as I can. I think the cop is right. Alright, we're almost out of time here, and I know this next segment is not short. Let me just take a peek. Oh, it's not that long. I got 3 minutes. Let me try to bang it out. The fight of all fights that put an end to Rachel being allowed at my parents' home and me and hers came near the end of the year. Rachel and I had been out drinking with friends that had dropped us off at my parents'. I was under the impression that Rachel was going to spend the night with me since she didn't ask to be dropped off at home. That changed as soon as we got into my room, where she said, "I can't stay here. I have to go home." Rachel lived a 5-minute walk through the woods, but she was afraid to walk it at night and asked me to drive her. In hindsight, what I should have done was walk her through the woods, but what I did was tell her I needed to sober up before I could drive. I decided the best way to do that was to take a nap. I woke up sometime later with Rachel sitting on my chest, slapping me across the face, saying, "Get up." My first instinct kicked in, fueled by alcohol, or not, and I threw her off of me onto the floor, and then went right back to sleep. Sometime later, I awoke, sensing something was wrong, and decided maybe I needed to use the bathroom. As I crossed the bedroom, I could see Rachel sitting in the dark holding something. I turned on the light, and she was holding the knife I had given her. She was wiping what looked to be blood off it onto one of my T-shirts. I then felt something wet on my chest and looked down to find my shirt soaked in blood. In disbelief, I asked her, "You stabbed me?" She looked at me, grinned, and said, "I should have fucking killed you." And then she started laughing. I can't explain my next reaction. I can only tell you that from a standing position, risking getting stabbed again, I kicked her in the face and left the house. I'm sitting in my car telling myself I need to go to a hospital, but with a combination of the booze and the bleeding, I'm probably going to pass out. I decide I'll drive myself to the police station and have them transport me, and then I remember that all the town offices have been destroyed in a fire a few days earlier, and I have no idea where they've set up temporary operations. While I'm sitting there trying to decide what to do, my shirt is getting wetter with blood. My mom knocks on the car window and says, "Why did you kick Rachel in the face?" I tell her, "Because she stabbed me." I turn on the interior light so she can see the blood. My mother runs back in the house, gets her car keys, and tells Ralph to bring Rachel home while we head to the emergency room. The stab wound was over my heart, so doctors did an x-ray and an EKG, and finding no major damage, stitched me up. Before I can leave, the cop comes in the room and says he has to do a police report for all shootings and stabbings. I tell him what happened, and he asks me if I want to press charges, and I say, no. My mom was bullshit and says she wants Rachel charged with attempted murder. I talk her out of it with a promise that we are through. That promise didn't last long. All right, we managed to squeeze that in. We're out of time. I'll see you next time. We're reading Boston Accent, Amazon.com. Ciao.